Good afternoon, Rotarians.
Good afternoon, Kevin.
Oh my, you guys really stepped it up in 2025. Welcome to our first meeting of 2025 of the Rotary Club of Des Moines. Again, very proud to say I'm Kevin Kassir, your president, and you're probably happy to know that you're halfway through my president years. As I was told, it goes all downhill from here. So you've made it, and it's just gets rolling.
Seems longer. Only been 6 months.
Okay. Yeah, I'm getting heckled to the left here. We'll have you guys up here shortly. So anyway, I want to thank Eric Overfell and Marnie Hockenberg for being our greeters today. And just to remind everybody, now that we're back in the swing of things, is be sure and sign up to be a greeter for the Moment of Inspiration. And we'll make it easy for you. In the newsletter, there's a link. You just go into that link, pop your name in, and do a little service to our club and greet folks as they come in. And also, like I said, we appreciate those who sign up for the Moment of Inspiration. And to that end, we were at that point, so I asked Susan Voss to come up and she gave a moment of inspiration, lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance and four-way test, and we'll have an opportunity to greet each other. So Susan.
Well, in honor of our guest speaker today, Jason Andringa from Pella, I wanted to read a very short poem by the famous Dutch poet Hendrik Marsman. It's called Memory of Holland. Thinking of Holland, I picture broad rivers meandering through unending lowland, rows of incredibly lanky poplars, huge plumes that linger at the edge of the world. In the astounding distant small holdings that recede into space throughout the country, clumps of trees, townlands, stumpy towers, churches and elms that contribute to the grand design, a low sky, and the sun smothering slowly in mists, pearl gray, mother of pearl. And in every county, the waters warming of more catastrophes, heard and heeded. And just as a footnote, Hendrik Marsman was killed at sea. He was on a ship en route to England, and it was torpedoed by the Germans. So this is his most famous poem that sort of talks about his homeland. Let's stand now and recite the Pledge of Allegiance, after which we will recite the four-way test. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do you have the test?
Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Okay, meet and greet.
Fred? Good to see you again, sir. Yeah, what's up? There you go. Jordan, good to see you? Yeah, good to see you, buddy. Yeah. Yeah, or it's a big guy. Brett? Hello, nice to see you.
have a number of guests with us today. So I will be introducing our guests, and I will ask you to stand and remain standing so that then we can recognize the group of you all at once. So first off, we have Casey Kasem with Wells Fargo, and he's also with the Des Moines AM Club, a guest of Paul Johnson. We have Rob Dowell with Principal, a guest of Scott Bennett. We have Matthew Mitchell, CEO of Baton Global, a guest of Carter Smith. And we have Katie O'Neill, the daughter of Melissa O'Neill. Welcome, everybody. And we had a traveling Rotarian recently. We've got Where in the World is club number 27. And this is a creative approach using his iPad. We have Don Flannery in Mauritius. So it's a beautiful place, Don.
Beautiful.
So welcome back. And thanks for taking us along and remembering Rotary. Now, it is Did You Know? And given my buddy Jason is here today, I thought about Iowa manufacturing and the innovations that Iowa manufacturing has had over the many years. And given Vermeer's probably running through his blood, I have the Amana brand in my history run through mine. So I'm going to tell you a few things about the relation of Amana and some of the history and innovations. So my question is, before I give this away, and I'm going to ask probably those 40 years and younger. All right? I'm only asking this for 40 years and younger. Do you know, and the older people are going to probably remember this. Do you know what a radar range is? No, I'm not. Okay, raise your hand if you're 40 or younger and you know what a radar range is. Nobody. Okay. All right, this is going to be fun. 45 and under, do you know what a radar range is? Nobody yet. 50 and under. All right, yes. Jason, what is it?
It was a stove, but four-place. I don't cook.
No. You're off. You're off on what it is. Okay, 55 and under. Kitty.
Well, I have a cheat sheet, so it's not.
This is a bigger secret than I thought it was. 60 and under. Go ahead, Bob. It's a microwave. It's the first countertop microwave oven. So this gentleman, his name was Percy Spencer, and Percy was an engineer at Raytheon, who was a defense contractor, and he was working on new radar systems with magnetron tubes, and they were just out. As you know, they're fully enclosed and they're protected, so you don't. They were out, and he happened to have a chocolate bar in his pocket, and working on the radar system, and the chocolate bar melted. So then he decided to put an egg in front of it, and that's not a good thing to put a whole egg in the microwave because it explodes, just so you know. It explodes. Boom, get the patent going. They had large ovens, but in 1967, they bought Amana Appliances to manufacture and launch the first countertop microwave oven, and it was called the Radar Range. So that is the history, and they would advertise it. This was in the 60s, I think, in early 70s, and there was an actress named Barbara Hale, and she would say, if it doesn't say Amana, it's not a radar range. So now you know the history of the microwave oven. And really quickly, a couple quick more things, because I know it's through my blood, as I said. A couple other firsts tied to them. Now when you watch golf tournaments, the pros are just covered with logos, right? But the first paid logo for golfers, was the Amana hat program. And this was in the 60s and 70s, and they would come to the Amana VIP, which was a pro-am. I don't know if anybody's aware what that was, but grew up in Cedar Rapids, so I attended. Anyway, pardon me?
Iowa City.
No, it wasn't Iowa, yes, you're right, but I would travel there, right? Yeah, but it wasn't Pink Pine. Anyway, Eastern Iowa, boy, tough crowd. Within 30 miles. Anyway, these pros would come to this, and they didn't have the finances. I mean, it wasn't as lucrative back then. So they got on the Amana insurance program, got some free appliances and maybe a few bucks, and boom, they wore these Amana hats at the golf tournaments, and that started the whole Nike thing. And
Who was the first pro?
who was the first pro? I mean, I know a few people up there like Lee Trevino, but no, I don't know who.
Charles Cootie.
Charles Cootie, wow. All right, people know this stuff.
Ask me how.
And then quickly, the last one is, there is one plant in the entire Maytag Amana group, from all across the country and in Mexico, that's still operating after the Whirlpool acquisition, and it's the Amana, Iowa plant, still running today, building refrigerators with the French door innovation, ice and water through the door, French door refrigerators now has taken over the refrigerator engine. So there you go. You're now all smarter than you were when you got here and learned about the innovation in Iowa. And now we have Rotarians on the floor laughing, and I guess we have past President Doug Saltzgaber. Give him a big round.
Thank you, President Kevin. Wow. All right, new year. Certainly all made New Year's resolutions. So this year I will. Well, I got some really good tickets to an event, free tickets to an event for New Year's. It was general admission on my couch. Stay at home, do nothing. So one of the things I'm looking to do this year is have more balance in my life. Kind of like this guy. Some of you might know him. And since I'm going to be retiring this year, I think this next slide kind of sums up my theme. Always have to have some animal in there for kitties. She likes animals. Another thing I have for a New Year's resolution is to stop spending so much time looking at my phone, and I found a device on the internet that would help me do that. And speaking of the internet and email, I decided I probably need to spend a little more time scrutinizing who I send emails to. But I think some of you might have same goal for the new year as I do, to exercise more and drink less. My biggest resolution is to try to come up with something funnier the rest of the year.
Way to kick off the new year, Doug. And now David Oman to introduce our keynote speaker.
Kevin, thank you, and good afternoon, everybody. And Doug, my longtime neighbor and my friend, I can hardly wait to see what you come up with when you have more time off. To all our guests who are here today, welcome to you as well. You know, in Iowa, the words Pella and Vermeer are synonymous with each other, and with the words character and quality. The late Gary Vermeer, Jason's grandfather, was a world-class inventor and entrepreneur. Jason's great uncle, Elmer Dutch Vermeer, was a World War II D-Day hero and a distinguished public servant later in life. Jason's mother, Mary Vermeer Andringa, was the first female CEO of a large manufacturing company in Iowa and perhaps beyond. His father, Dale Andringa, is now a retired, respected, and for some of us, beloved friend, MD here in Des Moines. So, good stock, Jason. And now Jason is making his mark, and none more so than in 2018 when the tornadoes hit, and he lost 2 of the plants in the Magnificent Mile and built them back better than ever. He is the president and CEO of Vermeer Manufacturing. It's a company that does world-class work, high-quality industrial and agricultural components and equipment. He spoke to this group several years ago, right after the tornado, but there's a lot that's happened since that time. Let me give you a little bit about his background. Dale is a graduate of Calvin College in Grand Rapids, a great community. He has advanced degrees from MIT, degrees plural, from MIT, and an MBA from Southern Cal. Before his career at Vermeer, I found this to be particularly interesting. Before his stint with the company, he worked with NASA. He worked at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory with NASA. So I was thinking last night, Jason, that if someday NASA discovers life on Mars, you personally will be able to launch a yellow Vermeer trenching machine to the red planet.
Good idea.
Okay. Talk about exporting. All right. Jason worked his way up at Vermeer, including time in the Netherlands, where he was the managing director for Europe, the Middle East, and Africa. He serves on the board of the National Association of Manufacturers, NAM, and the Iowa Business Council, among many others. He and his wife, Carrie, and their 3 children live in Pella, the same town that has that special relationship with Vermeer. Please welcome our speaker, Jason Andringa.
Good afternoon, everyone. Great to be with you. David, thank you very much for the kind introduction. Kevin, thank you for the invitation. As David alluded to, Vermeer was hit by a tornado in 2018. I think it was a year or 2 after that, Kevin invited me to speak to Des Moines Rotary and did so at Wakanda. There was a lunch gathering at Wakanda. So I'm really not going to cover that in this particular talk, but if there's enough time for questions at the end, if there's anything that people want to dig into about that, I'm happy to talk more about that at that time. My intention today is to share a little bit about the history of Vermeer and kind of the current state of Vermeer. All of you as Iowans, I would assume most of you have some level of familiarity with Vermeer, but there's probably some things with regards to our history and kind of the current makeup of the products that we build that will be new to you. For sure, I learned a lot about Amana, so if I can come anywhere close to helping you learn a little bit more about Vermeer, anywhere close to per minute, as what Kevin did, that would be astonishing. It all started with this man. As David mentioned, Vermeer was founded by my grandfather, Gary Vermeer, and I had a just tremendous relationship with my grandfather. I have nothing but positive things to say about my grandfather, and just a naturally brilliant engineer. Never went to college, and in fact, from the stories I've heard, he didn't really try very hard in high school either. But a person who just by being around machinery and working on things at the farm, his natural creativity came through, his natural innovativeness came through. My grandfather's first product did not start with some sort of a business plan presentation or come out of some business class or because he wanted to be an entrepreneur. In the mid-1940s, when labor was difficult to find and developing machinery in labor-constrained markets is definitely a very strong theme throughout all of Vermeer. In the mid-1940s, labor was difficult to find on the farm. My grandfather built a mechanical wagon hoist for his own use, and his neighbors saw it and said, "Hey, would you build one of those for me?" And pretty soon my grandfather had enough demand that he hired a person. And that was as simple as what the start of Vermeer was. Nothing more complex than my grandfather building something for his own use. His neighbors wanted one, and pretty soon he needed to hire somebody to build the demand for that. We continue to be 100% family held by descendants of my grandfather and his brother, and we continue to be family led into the third generation as well. My uncle Bob Vermeer served in the role of CEO for many years. My uncle and my mother were co-CEO for several years. Then my mom also was sole CEO for several years before I became CEO. In addition to being incredibly proud to serve in the role of CEO of the company that my grandfather founded, I'm also incredibly proud to be my mother's successor at Vermeer. Extremely proud of the impact that my mom had on Vermeer and in our industry and with our customer base. My mother was also the first female chair of the National Association of Manufacturers, and the CEO of Caterpillar served in the role of chair right before her, or right after her, which was kind of fun for us. So yeah, we continue to be 100% family held, and at least into the third generation, run by a family member as well. Our leadership, as I said, continues to be within the third generation. My mom is doing well. For anybody that knows my mom, she and my dad, and for those of you that know my dad, are in the British Virgin Islands right now, so they're both fully retired, enjoying their retirement. And my mother retired from the role of CEO about a decade ago. It's hard for me to believe it's been that long already, but about a decade ago. And I'm also very proud that of the third generation family members, my sister works in the company of Vermeer. She is our VP of operations. And honestly, I would say my sister's probably even more aligned with my mom in the sense that they were both, my mom was, and my sister is, very operationally focused, very continuous improvement focused, very focused on trying to make things better today. And my sister and I, in all honesty, have a wonderful working relationship. I think a big part of it is that our skill sets and our strengths do differ from each other, and we have a lot of mutual respect for each other. So I'm very optimistic about my sister and my working relationship going forward into the future. So just a few things about Vermeer. I like to, early on in a presentation about Vermeer, talk about our 4 Ps. Our 4 Ps have been in place for many years. I like to show them with principles at the center. I can speak to anyone around the world that to Vermeer, principles are the golden rule, treating other people like you want to be treated yourself. And for several years, we have been honored to be named as the top manufacturer with our dealers on the ag side of our business. And every time we celebrate that, I always say, hey, this is a reflection that we treat our dealers like they want to be treated themselves, and that's why we're highly regarded by our dealers. So principles at the center, people as our top P. For those of you that do remember the story of the tornado, on the day of the tornado, when we knew we had no serious injuries, no fatalities, which is still called either the Miracle on the Mile or the Vermiracle at Vermeer. On that night, I said, hey, multiple buildings completely destroyed, 400 personal vehicles damaged or destroyed, but we have all of our people. So we have everything we need to come back better and stronger than ever before, and that completely proved to be the case. And so oftentimes, it's just really easy for me to talk about people as our top value through that story. Product, we've always been a product-oriented company, and we do not shy away from the fact that we are a for-profit business. And once again, using the tornado as an example, we had a very favorable resolution with our insurer after the tornado, but yet we reinvested tens of millions of dollars back into the rebuild because of being a profitable company over all the years that we've been in existence. So these are our 4 Ps, our timeless values. So oftentimes I can tell the whole history of the company from this slide. I already talked about the mechanical wagon hoist, which is the left small picture down below. And the mechanical wagon hoist was almost immediately rendered obsolete by hydraulic wagon hoists. But my grandfather, being a naturally brilliant engineer, started working on other products. And all of our businesses today, all the different markets that we serve, they can all trace their heritage back to the farm. So in the 1950s, my grandfather started building power takeoff driven tiling trenchers to put in drainage tile for low-lying farm fields, which was somewhat self-serving for my grandfather. A lot of my grandfather's fields were low-lying fields and prone to flooding. But the entire history of our underground infrastructure business lines can trace their heritage back to those PTO-driven tiling trenchers in the 1950s. So more than 50% of the business can trace their heritage back to that product. The next product over is a stump cutter. Also in that time period in the 1950s, land in Iowa was being cleared and put into agriculture, and a nuisance of land clearing were the stumps after you took the trees down. So a local area farmer came to Vermeer with the idea of a stump cutter, and they built a prototype, and they assumed that it would work best by pushing the drum forward and backward over the stump. And as my grandfather tells the story, someone hit the wrong lever and it swung side to side, and it was 5 times more effective that way. So oftentimes when I talk to our engineering interns or I talk to our new hire engineers, I often will highlight that story, that you're really smart people, and you oftentimes your design will be a really good design, but always be open-minded to the idea that things might be better, just a little bit different, or maybe even substantially different than what you envisioned, and that's a good story of that. About 30% of our business traces its heritage back to the invention of the stump cutter. So more than 80% of the business is what we now refer to as the industrial side of the business. So not the agricultural part of the business, which is interesting because a lot of people in Iowa assume that we are a primarily agricultural company. And the reason for that is that my grandfather's most iconic invention is the final one there on the right, which is the round hay baler. And my grandfather did not invent that until 1971, so after the radar range. And anytime you see a 6-foot or 5-foot round bale in the field, my grandfather invented that in 1971. You know, people will say to me, I would have assumed they round baled forage materials for hundreds of years. I'm like, nope, not before 1971. So that's my grandfather's most iconic invention. We continue to be very proud of the little niche that we play in agriculture for mowing, raking, tedding, baling, processing, mixing, forage crops, primarily for the beef industry. So we are less than 20% of our business is that side of the business, and yet at the same time we continue to be very proud of that part of our business, largely because of Vermeer, my grandfather's invention of the round hay baler. So I'll go through these slides, but years ago we did a brand study and really tried to understand how our customers perceive us and the messaging that we could make to the market, and we came out of that with the tagline "Equipped to do more," and also our promise to our customers was to make a real impact on our customers' productivity and profitability. So it's been probably more than a decade since we came up with that tagline and that promise, but we continue to feel like those are the accurate tagline and promise to our customers still to this day. Vermeer is a global company. Once again, that started early on in our history. It was already in the 1960s that my grandfather started working with people in the Netherlands to export US-built Vermeer products into the Netherlands, and a variety of different schemes to manufacture machinery in the Netherlands. Of course, Vermeer being a Dutch name, my grandfather with Dutch heritage, Pella with Dutch heritage, it just seemed like a natural first country to start working in the Netherlands. But to this day, we continue to have a physical footprint in the Netherlands. And that was my second job when I came to Vermeer, was serving in the role of managing director for our entity in the Netherlands, which supports our customers and dealers in Europe, Middle East, and Africa. So we've had a footprint in the Netherlands for about 50 years now, and continue to be a global company. The volume of Vermeer that we export has gradually come down, frankly, over the last decade. A decade ago, I would have aspired to grow the proportion of the Vermeer business outside the United States. Unfortunately, the opposite has happened. We have continued to grow outside the United States, but we frankly have grown within the United States much more rapidly than outside the United States. And at this point, as I say to our board and our shareholders, it feels as though, looking forward into the future, exporting is going to continue to have a lot of headwinds for a company like Vermeer. We feel as though we are more well set up than a number of our competitors because of our manufacturing footprint in the Netherlands and our manufacturing footprint in China, which is quite small in the grand scheme of things at Vermeer. But our aspiration continues to be to serve the entire world market. I believe the United States accounts for about 20% of the global GDP, so 80% of the world GDP is outside the United States. We sell more than 80% of our volume into the United States. So we have almost the inverse 80-20 rule with where the global market is and where we sell our products. We have a number of different facilities at Vermeer now. Part of that is driven by the difficulty of finding the workforce that we need in Pella, as you can maybe imagine, with Pella Corporation also being in Pella and other manufacturing and other employment opportunities in Pella and surrounding communities. So Pella continues to be the headquarters. We were at kind of a local low point with regards to facility space the day after the tornado. But since the tornado, we have built back, or either rebuilt or built completely new, about 1.2 million square feet of space in Pella. But frankly, we feel as though that's about as big of a facility as we can have in Pella and still attract the workforce that we need to man a facility of that size. So we have a number of other facilities. Our strongest partnership from a university perspective is definitely Iowa State University because of their strength in agriculture and engineering. And we have a facility in Iowa State's Research Park that we're incredibly proud of. It allows our Iowa State interns to continue to work for Vermeer part-time, 10 hours a week, 20 hours a week when they're back at school. And we work on some of the more advanced technology type ideas that we're thinking about at our facility in Ames. So it allows us, proximity to Iowa State. It's also, frankly, a more appealing place for young graduates to work than, frankly, moving to Pella right after graduating from college. Years ago, we purchased a company that specializes in selling used horizontal directional drills, which is the most important product line to Vermeer. So horizontal directional drills are machines that are used to put in underground infrastructure, fiber optic, electric, water, sewer, etc., natural gas. A type of machine that if you wanted to install infrastructure from this side of the river to the other side of the river, you can just drill right underneath the river and pull the infrastructure back through the hole that you created. And we purchased a company that specializes in selling used horizontal directional drilling equipment. And to the market, we kind of maintain some separation between us and that company because that company buys and sells used competitive equipment as well. But it's been extremely insightful to us to know the value of used Vermeer equipment in comparison to our competitive equipment. That's probably been the greatest value of that acquisition. So we have three international regional offices. One of them is in the Netherlands. In addition to a manufacturing facility, we have office space for team members that do sales and product support. For Europe, Middle East, and Africa, we have a regional office in Singapore, supporting our dealers and customers in the Asia Pacific area, and then we have a facility in the Sao Paulo area to support our customers in Latin America. And then you can't read it on there, but we really have rapidly built up other manufacturing footprints other than Pella. And actually 2 of those footprints happen to be in the state of Iowa. So we actually have 3 different manufacturing locations within the state of Iowa. One of them is in Griswold, Iowa, that came via an acquisition of a company called Griswold, which makes mixing wagons on the Ford side of our business. And then when we were in the real tough part of workforce shortages about 3 years ago, when inflation was going through the roof and everybody was hiring like crazy, we leased a building in Des Moines from EFCO. Some of you may be familiar with the company EFCO. And we started building what we call our cutting edge, or some of our tooling, some of the products that go, that are wear parts for our underground infrastructure parts of our business. And we started building those products in a facility in Des Moines. And we first leased half of the building, and now we're in the process of moving into the other half of that building. And it's worked out great. For the biggest reason was to open up a new pool of workforce for Vermeer, not just Pella. And basically we felt good about the ability for the Vermeer brand to translate effectively from Pella to Des Moines, and that's proven to be the case. So that was very successful. And then also via acquisition, we have facilities in South Dakota, South Carolina, and Florida. We do a 3-year strategic plan. I won't spend time on it here, but this is kind of the framework that we use. In the middle, we have our core competencies, or our brand pillars, those things that we believe we have done better than the competition in the past and will continue to do better in the future. The baseline is our 4 Ps. We try to leverage our timeless values as often as possible. And then the 2 boxes kind of in the lower middle, those are our current strategic priorities. Growing global capability, which frankly we developed that when demand was still gangbusters. Demand has flattened out now over the last, say, 6 months, but that doesn't stop us from improving our capability. Maybe not capacity anymore, but focusing on our global capability. And then easier work by design. I often will say that my grandfather designed machines to make work easier by the machines he designed, and that's translated into today. We're really thinking about more the digital side of things. So responsibly using artificial intelligence, and also making sure that the information the Vermeer team needs, our dealers need, and our customers need is easily accessible to them in a form that is helpful to them. So I'll just share small snippets about the different parts of the Vermeer business and then open it up to whatever amount of time we have left, which I don't think will be very much. Life cycle. The most recent building that we built in Pella is a 300,000 square foot parts center. So all Vermeer machines go through parts rapidly. That's a wonderful thing to have in a business. And so we are very, very focused on making sure that not only selling a piece of equipment to our customers, but from a service and parts perspective, our customers are well taken care of. Every Vermeer piece of equipment takes a beating in its work site. And that's also a wonderful thing to have as part of a business, is that your machines take a beating and need to be replaced fairly frequently. So that's one of the sweet spots of the markets that we look at. Markets where the Vermeer machine is often the center of the job site. There may be other machines that are working around the Vermeer piece of equipment, but if the Vermeer piece of equipment goes down, the whole job site goes down. So our customers' desire to have certainty when it comes to uptime and parts is really high. So forage started with the invention of the round hay baler. It's a small part of the Vermeer business, but a part of the Vermeer business that we continue to be very proud of. The forage part of the business has decoupled a bit from row crop agriculture. A number of you are probably aware that things are fairly tough right now. in the row crop side of agriculture. John Deere has had a series of layoffs. Kinsey even had a layoff recently. We are really not affiliated with row crop agriculture, and even though things have softened a little bit for us on the forward side, and that will probably, the row crop side will probably eventually affect us on the forward side, but there has been more of a decoupling in agriculture in that regard recently than we have seen historically. So here's just a few of the products that we have on the ag side of our business. The product that's the large picture is a mixing wagon that we acquired in acquiring a company called Schuler in Griswold, Iowa. Just really helps fill out our portfolio to the customers that we serve. Environmental started with the invention of the stump cutter, and there's really now two significant parts of the business: tree care, rental, landscape. We consider one part of our business. Overall, we really consider ourselves to be serving about 10 distinct different markets. And so even though we lump these together in one business unit, tree care, rental, and landscape all do have different dynamics in them, one to the other. And then recycling and forestry, this is a rapidly growing part of the Vermeer business. In fact, this is probably the most rapidly growing part of the Vermeer business. After a tornado, after a hurricane, after an ice storm, Vermeer grinders are brought in to process all of the organic waste that is generated. So after the back-to-back hurricanes that hit the southeast last year, I guess that would be last year now. What they do is they make piles of millions of tons of waste, and then bring in machines like Vermeer grinders to process that down into wood chips, which can be used for landscaping or erosion control or whatever. So getting now into frankly the most important part of the Vermeer business, what we call infrastructure, utility being the most important within that. So utility is primarily installing telecommunications infrastructure, fiber optic, just been a lot of strength in that area for a long time. Utility kind of overlaps with pipeline, which has strengthened quite a bit. Pipeline historically for Vermeer was primarily natural gas pipeline and distribution, and also oil pipeline and distribution. Frankly, that has become a smaller and smaller part of the business for us. The bigger parts is this equipment is really used a lot for water infrastructure, and there's a lot of water infrastructure that needs to be replaced or refurbished within the United States. And then the fastest growing segment that we serve within the infrastructure business is the undergrounding of electric infrastructure. So a stat which I have shared frequently is when you put in a query into Google, when you put that same query into ChatGPT, it takes 10 times more energy for that query in ChatGPT than putting it into Google. So that gives you an idea of the kind of all of the above energy infrastructure that's going to need to be built out to support artificial intelligence and frankly all the data centers. Iowa is a very prevalent place for data centers because of the price of energy and the prevalence of water. And so we see very strong opportunities. And then the desire to put that electric infrastructure underground. Historically, electric infrastructure for transmission has been above ground, obviously very susceptible to hurricanes, ice storms, derechos, et cetera, et cetera. So as the cost of putting in infrastructure underground has come down, more and more electric infrastructure is being put in underground as opposed to overhead. We could tell a long story about our entry into surface mining. It actually started with our Italian dealer who came up with the idea of a machine along these lines to do site prep for vineyards. So that's where this product line started, but it's very, very affiliated with mining of bauxite, which is the raw material for aluminum, iron ore, raw material for steel, and we've just come out with a new machine which has no cab. So at first it's going to be operated with remote control, and eventually will probably be pretty much autonomous. It'll follow a mine plan, and that's really going to get us into the quarry market. So pretty much anytime you're in an airplane and you're looking down as you're approaching Chicago O'Hare, you can see quarries everywhere. You don't notice them when you're driving, but from the air you can see quarries everywhere, and those are typically limestone quarries to then supply crushed rock for building projects. And this part of the business has had very little market opportunity for Vermeer within the United States historically, but we really see opportunity going forward because of this new machine we developed. So I'm going to wrap it up there. I did say to David, I would just mention that, yeah, once again, you know, the tornado happened for Vermeer in 2018. I think it was maybe in 2020 that I shared kind of the tornado story. I like to say that if a picture is worth 1,000 words, a video is worth 10,000 words. And a year after the tornado, we put together a documentary. And if you search for the story of Vermeer Strong on YouTube, the 30-minute documentary will come up. So anything I say will pale in comparison to watching that video, just to give yourself an idea of the scale and the scope of that. But yeah, it was a challenging period of time after that. We had the tornado and tornado rebuild, which then overlapped with the COVID pandemic, which then overlapped with the workforce and supply chain challenges kind of post-COVID. So yeah, I think the next few years are going to be pretty chaotic from a business perspective as well. But yeah, it was kind of a sequence of challenges that we had to deal with post tornado for about 5 or 6 years. Happy to answer any questions about that or any other questions. That's the hand I saw first.
Are you involved in fracking?
No. So it's a great question, and so when we talk about horizontal directional drilling, we literally don't go any deeper than, say, 30 feet. And so fracking, which a lot of people refer to that as horizontal drilling, that's really vertical drilling, which after going down thousands of feet vertically, then they turn horizontally. So yeah, we don't make any products with regards to fracking, but you know, we're affiliated with regards to water reclamation and then distribution of you know, those materials once they're extracted. But fracking is not part of the Vermeer business at all. Yeah.
Many years from now, you'll be addressing the Rotary Club of Des Moines as the former CEO of Vermeer. What will be your leadership legacy?
Yeah, great question. You know, honestly, when I first became CEO of Vermeer, you know, nearly a decade ago, as hard as that is to believe, and people would ask me, you know, what do you want your legacy to be? And I said, number one, the continuation of innovative products being our cornerstone of what our customers perceive Vermeer as being. I feel really good about that one so far. I feel really good about the trajectory we've been on in that regard. The second thing is I said I wanted to grow the share of Vermeer's business outside the United States. That has been a failure. And yeah, honestly, I don't see it getting much easier. I see American equipment manufacturing, exporting to be a slog for the foreseeable future.
Why is that?
Trump tariffs are not going to help at all, and they didn't help the last time. And you know, honestly, the Chinese build great equipment, and the Europeans do. So I just think I could go on a diatribe about, you know, the golden age of globalization and the fact that, you know, we are no longer in the golden age of globalization. And so yeah, we're very fortunate that our domestic market has been as favorable for us as it has been. But yeah, it's pedaling into a headwind outside the United States.
One more question.
Okay.
What about the pipelines? Do you have machines that dig and?
Yes. So installing pipeline, Caterpillar builds purpose-built equipment for kind of excavation. Our equipment would basically either be purpose-built to trench directly or horizontally directional drill. So we're very complementary. So for instance, like the carbon pipeline, which hopefully will be built, they'll use a lot of Caterpillar pipeline equipment to put in a lot of it. And then they'll use Vermeer equipment to do like the river crossings and the road crossings and those types of things. And any type of sensitive area where there's like a wetland, a Vermeer piece of equipment could just install the piece of infrastructure all the way underneath it and never disturb it. So I think that's my last.
Jason, thank you. I know you're got an extremely busy schedule to make time for us today. Really appreciate it. Thanks for all you do for the state of Iowa, really. Next meetings coming up. We have Colonel Nathan Folk with the Iowa State Patrol, who will be with us on the 16th. On the 23rd, Brendan Neville, CEO of the Iowa Motor Truck Association. And then on January 30th, we will have the program director of Harvest Academy, Taylor Smith. Our next events to connect. January 21st is our next morning fuel at Freedom Blend Coffee. We will have our keynote internal Rotary Club member is Greg Evers, CEO of the Catch Des Moines, will be featured that day. So you want to be there at 9 to 10 o'clock, Freedom Blend Coffee, January 21st. And then Susan Voss will tell about her incredible career on. Yes, incredible. And I say that when you're not here too.
That's a sneak preview.
A lot of Red Bull that day.
She will be here on February 11th. I'm trying to sell you, Susan.
Yeah, it's a hard sell.
So put that on your calendars, February 11th and January 21st. Join us for coffee, and also bring a friend if you'd like to come and get to know those folks a little bit better. This is our 3-year strategic plan pillar that we just did. So we connect with you in that way. So as I said, as we went into the end of last year, make it a New Year's resolution. How can you help us in building relationships across our club? How can you help us introducing new folks about the great club that we have? And lastly, how can you help us make an impact in our community? And to that end, Deanne Thompson is going to be holding a meeting right back there, I think, right, Deanne? On our international community grants. So if you're interested in hearing about that, and by the way, she's doing a phenomenal job in taking that committee to the next level. Thank you, Deanne. So that's it for today. Thank you, guests, for coming. The meeting is adjourned.